Hello, welcome to Wednesday's ESPN FC Live. My name is Mark Donaldson, and today, alongside Luis Miguel Echegaray. Now, normally, when you're on some far-flung beach with a beer just out of shot, you usually show that. So the suggestion is, with a blank background, you're sitting in your living room. Is that right?
I am back at home. Yes, MD. But home is where your heart is, so I'm happy to be here, even though no pina colada.
No, not yet. Anyway, although the next half hour you might think that both of us have been on them already, we have not. Today we shall be talking about the Premier League's last 9 games, the title run-in, and we will be making our predictions. Who will be playing Champions League football next season, and more importantly, who will be walking away with the Premier League title this year. We'll talk as well about Erling Haaland and Roy Keane's comments and Pep's response, about Bellingham and others, but we're going to start with a preview of Euro 2024. 72 days to go until the opening game. Germany against Scotland in Munich. I can't wait to be there. I haven't told the wife how much the ticket was, so please don't spill any beans for that one. So what we're going to do, we've asked both LME and the producer asked myself as well for a sleeper pick, the winner, a player or a team to keep an eye on, which team will overachieve and which team will surprise us and not make it out of the group. So rather than start with a winner, I kind of like the idea of starting with a sleeper pick because we've got some names we haven't seen before, like Georgia. Scotland have qualified again after a long absence. But when you've got third place getting through in 4 of the 6 groups, you could argue, LME, it's kind of harder not to get through to the knockout stage. So who have you made as your sleeper pick for the Euros?
Yeah, a very good point, MD, there at the very end, which is because of those high place, third place finishes, there is room for opportunity for many of these teams. And there's emotional storylines that we can go anywhere. But let me answer straight away. I'm going with Austria. Austria, who, by the way, have made the last 2 Euros, reaching the knockout stages for the first time in 2020. And then they lost to the eventual winner, Italy, in the round of 16. But ever since Ralf Rangnick, remember him, Man United fans, since Ralf Rangnick took over from Franco Foda from Austria, and it's been an absolute revelation. Because before Ralf Rangnick, Austria were very counter-attacking, almost reactive, and a little bit boring. Now, they're the complete opposite. And in fact, their qualifying campaign for this tournament has shown it. They only lost 1 game. That was to Belgium, and that was a thriller, a 3-2 matchup, showing that there's an organizational, skillful, very talented squad. Yes, David Alaba is injured, but they have a lot of talent, including Kevin Danso, the replacement of David Alaba. Look him up, by the way. What a tremendous player playing in Liga right now. But they are very, very smart, focused. And when I look at the table and at their group, it's definitely doable for them to get second place behind France, because Poland are not what they used to be. And I'm going to talk about the Netherlands later on in this tournament, in this segment. But for me, Austria are my sleeper pick. I like how organized they are, and I like that little sort of, attacking-minded mentality that they have gotten from Ralf Rangnick. What do you think, and who do you have?
I've gone for Belgium. Now, that might not seem like much of a sleeper pick, but the way
That's not a sleeper.
Stop it. Listen, the way... I'm going to show my working for this one. A sleeper pick is someone that's not single-digit odds, right? England are favourites. Still think they're worth taking on at maybe a 3 to 100 to 30. France, like them, Germany, Spain, Portugal, they're all single digits. You can get nearly double that on Belgium. You can get 17 to 1 on Belgium. Now, is it the golden generation still? It's still a talented side. Any team with Kevin De Bruyne is a talented side. The problem you've got, now when you've got 4 getting through who finished third in the group stages, there's a couple of round of 16s where the group runners-up meet each other. Belgium might get France, or they might get England in the quarterfinals. But you're going to get big matchups like that, and they would go into probably both of those games as underdogs. But I just think there's been too long people have saying, oh, it's the golden generation, it's time for Belgium. Not many people are speaking about them this year. So I like your Austria pick, and I'll be referring to the Austria pick when we talk about a team not to get out the group. Clue, it's not Austria, it's not France, and it's not Netherlands coming up. So what do you think of the Belgium pick? Is it loosely, am I okay to say it's a sleeper pick, or you're not having that?
Only because I love you, MD. But otherwise, come on now. A sleeper pick on Belgium. Oh, here's a player you've never heard of. Kevin De Bruyne. Oh, he's really good. Look out for him. Oh, Kylian Mbappe. Come on. Sleeper. You're going to give something that nobody's paying attention to. Somebody that's asleep. And that's why I get your point. I get your point about Belgium. The fact that nobody's really going to pick them as a favorite. As you said, France and England are clearly ahead. And then maybe you have other players like the host Germany after, maybe rejuvenating themselves being at home. Of course, even Portugal under Roberto Martinez. But Belgium as a sleeper, they're still one of the favorites, top 5. I mean, Spain included in that one. I'm not fully excluding it. You're just about getting away with it, MD. That's all I'm about to say.
Who's your winner?
My winner is France. That's my winner. And yes, I know England fans want me to say England, and there is no denying in the overwhelming talent that England has. You could argue to say that it's probably the most talented, deepest squad it's had in modern history. But as I have said, ever since he was a manager, Gareth Southgate is too reactive. He coaches like how he used to defend. And England's biggest enemy is England themselves. Because I think in crunch time situations, in the semis or quarters, when you really have to make in-game decisions, I still fear for what England have to do. They don't have a plan B. So that's my worry. Whereas France, they've been there before. They know exactly what it takes. They have the killer instinct. And something that I like about the French team is that not only do they now have Antoine Griezmann and Kylian Mbappe and all these experienced players, Upamecano, of course, Dembele, but now they have these young stars who are now experienced starters in their domestic teams like Tchouameni and Camavinga. They've got Zaire Emery, the 70-year-old superstar from France as well. So that little X factor. And when you look at this squad, it's so deep. But the most important factor for me when it comes to deciding the winner is that you need to have been there before, and you need to understand the meaning of a killer instinct. And that is France to me. Who do you have?
Totally agree with everything you've said there. I think when you're looking at whether it's betting or whatever, you don't just bet for the sake of it. You look for value. Now, if Randall, Kolo, Muani had scored that goal past Martinez in the World Cup final, would France be second favourites for the Euros? No. They'd be probably half the price that they are, right? And at 4-1 right now, I think that's a knocking bet for everything you've said, and depth as well. Now, England, middle to front, are as good as anybody in the world. Defensively, awful. That defence, if that wins the Euros, Gareth Southgate should get a knighthood. Because it's not strong. It's not strong enough. The goalkeeper's not strong enough. The defense isn't strong enough as well. They can attack you from wide areas, but centrally, no. They're going to have to score 2 or 3 goals in the knockout stages in each game to probably win the games, because you can't trust their defense. For France, there's strength and depth. The French backup players for each position could probably have a good claim of getting to the knockout stages and beyond in this Euro. So I like that. So I've gone for the same as you. This is an interesting one. One player to keep an eye on. Who have you gone for?
This is tough because obviously you can go with, the likes of Nico Williams from Spain, who I think is going to make a big move this summer. Or you could talk about other specific talented players like Zaire Emery, the aforementioned player I just talked about from PSG. But actually, I'm going to go with Mikhailo Mudryk, Chelsea's Ukrainian player. And I'll tell you why. Ukraine, obviously, we can talk about them later on, but let's focus on the winger in a second. He's the assist leader for Ukraine in qualifying. He's gotten the most assists out of any Ukrainian player during the stages. He obviously got that great, fantastic winner against Iceland to make it here. And I think that this season with Chelsea, even though Chelsea have struggled once again and finding inconsistency once again under Mauricio Pochettino, Mudryk actually has been showing a lot of maturity as a 21-year-old. And on the international stage, this man just levels it up and he rises his game. So I want people to pay attention to what Mudryk can do with this Ukrainian side, who I'm sure the neutrals will be cheering for.
I like that. And I'm kind of gone down a similar avenue for this one. I've gone for a player who's probably better form for his country than his club, Rasmus Højlund.
Nice.
7 goals in 12 games for Denmark. He just fits the way that they play. So I like him. There's a lot of youngsters, and we forget the likes of Mudryk and Højlund and Lamine Yamal's 16. I saw a thing the other day. I was doing prep for the Barcelona game, and in 2040, Lamine Yamal will be the same age as Kevin De Bruyne is now. That's
Okay,
how
stop
young
it.
that he is. Ridiculous. It
Are,
really is.
are me and you dead by this point, Mark Donaldson?
I
Like,
hope not. I hope not. I just want to last the next half hour to get through this week's ESPN FC Live on a
we'll get there.
Wednesday. What about a team to overachieve? Who have you got?
Well, I mean, this is a compliment, and I'm going back to Ukraine here because after Belgium in their group, second is up for grabs, and even a high place, third place, as we talked about at the beginning of this show. So these are obviously important things, when it comes to qualifying. Now, I want to make something clear. There are obviously bigger things, more important things going on in the world than football, and Ukraine, who continues to suffer under the tragedies of war. I know that this team is collectively becoming such a family that they want to do this for their nation, for their compatriots all around the world. And I think that will be the added element for them to try and overachieve, because once you get into the knockout stages, and again, like I said, I think they can get out of this group. I mean, we've already talked about, from a team perspective, we've already talked about Mudryk, but Zinchenko is another player who really rises when he plays for his national
plays
team.
Further forward, doesn't he?
He plays further forward like a winger, and he takes on more responsibility when he represents the Ukrainian national team. And here's another one that I know Artem Dorbic from Girona, who, by the way, is the joint leading scorer in La Liga, the same goals as Jude Bellingham, and of course, and the striker from Ante Budimir, right, from Osasuna. Yep. He's got 16 goals in La Liga. So this is a very talented, eager team, and I think that willingness, that passion to represent their nation and bring a smile, I think will be the added component. And as a neutral, I know that I will be rooting for them. I see them overachieving in this tournament.
Look, it's impossible for me to get my usual weekly mention of my team, Heart of Midlothian, into a Euro 2020 preview, but I can get Scotland in, and that's the answer for this one. I think Scotland will overachieve in the Euros this summer. I like the group. So do Switzerland and Hungary. They'll be looking at Scotland and thinking easy meat for us, which is fine. Germany, I liked it more prior to the recent friendlies than I did afterwards. And I liked it more prior to Toni Kroos deciding that he wanted to spend his summer in Germany and not on a beach somewhere. And he's kind of back out of international retirement. However, I mentioned earlier about 2 of the round of 16 knockout stages are between sides that finished the runners-up in their groups. And Scotland are one of them. Unfortunately, the runner-up gets runner-up in Group B, which is probably going to be the likes of France or Netherlands or whoever. So it's going to be tough. And
also, very quickly, Scotland, I think, learned their lessons from the previous Euro tournament. Yeah, so I'm with you. Hey, I'm with John McGinn, Mark Donaldson, anything.
Okay, final question. Which team will surprise us and not make it out of the group?
The Netherlands. I think that it might be a shock to some, especially our friends at ESPN Netherlands. But, when you look on paper at what this team is all about, all the way from Virgil van Dijk to, the midfield and Frankie de Jong, and of course, going forward with Memphis Depay, etc., you think, wow, so much talent. Cody Gakpo, providing his work there for Liverpool as well. But to me, this goes back to my first answer on how much I believe in this Austrian team, because they're everything that the Netherlands are not sometimes. They're organized. They know what to do when they don't have the ball. And I also, I don't have that much trust in Ronald Koeman, to be honest with you, specifically when things get tough. I think it's going to be a tough Euro 2024 for the Netherlands for the final point, which is they don't have a full-on dependable killer instinct type of striker. Mm-hmm. They have talented attackers. They have people that can play off the ball and get you goals. But do they have a killer in front of goal? I don't see it. And I think that'll be a big reason why they don't get out of the group.
I think that's a really good shot. I'm going to stay in that group for my pick. I'm not going to go the Dutch, but I agree with your sentiments regarding that. I like the fact that you mentioned Austria earlier as an overachiever, as a kind of sleeper pick. Because if Austria get out that group, and the Dutch do, and the French do, the Polish are going home.
Bye-bye, Lewandowski. Yeah.
Yeah, I know they got in through the playoffs and they won on penalties against Wales, but you talk about the group with Italy and Croatia. It's a hard one to get out of, but that's a nasty group as well. So the Dutch or the Poles, I'll go the Poles and you can go the Dutch. Really looking forward to it. 72 days to go before the Euros. Of course, full build-up right here on our ESPN FC YouTube channel. And we will be boots on the ground in Germany in the summer. Now, to the Premier League, there are 9 games to go. There's games this afternoon with Manchester City in action against your boys Aston Villa. Arsenal are in action against Luton tomorrow. Liverpool at home to Sheffield United. So the top 3 in action over the next 24 hours. So as we discuss this, I want to bring up a full screen because the boffins in the background have been busy building. Nice alliteration there with the teams that are still left to play for Liverpool, for Arsenal, and for Manchester City. Now, the crux of all this, we're going to go from 4 to 1. Who's going to be in the top 4 in ascending order? So, you look at those fixtures, Luis Miguel, and you see Spurs against Liverpool, against Arsenal, and against Man City. You see Aston Villa against Liverpool, against Arsenal, and against Manchester City. Looking at that, who do you reckon has got the easier run-in out of the 3, and who's got the hardest?
Well, out of those 3 that we're looking at, the title chasers in Liverpool, Arsenal, and Man City, I can tell you that from those remaining 9 matches, for Liverpool, 5 of them are against teams in the bottom half of the table. City have 4 against teams at the bottom half of the table, and Arsenal only 3. And I think, MD, that has a massive statement in what's going to happen. If, obviously, on paper, things go right the way that they want it to be, which most often than not, it happens. But I have to believe that the strength of schedule is going to be a major determinant here. And I also think, by the way, that Bayern Munich for Arsenal and Real Madrid for Manchester City will have a say. I think Liverpool can handle Atalanta in the Europa League easier than what Man City can handle Real Madrid, as well as Arsenal can handle Bayern Munich. So I think that that overwhelming side of scheduling when the Champions League and Europa League comes in will be a factor. But from that schedule, that Premier League schedule, Liverpool have the easier run-in when you compare it to what's happening to the teams bottom on the side of the table. And listen, Arsenal fans, I believed in you for a very long time, and I still kind of do, but I've been reflecting on this, Mark Donaldson, and I think getting nothing or just 1 point against Manchester City was probably not the best thing. Had they won that, I would have been more more confident of it. Now, granted, not losing it is fantastic, but I think that Liverpool, buoyed by the fact that they want to give Jurgen Klopp a good send-off, I think all stars are aligning for Liverpool winning this.
I think it was a difficult one for Arsenal at the weekend because a point's a good result at the Etihad, but we're so far out now. There's still 9 games to go after that one that you don't really know that if you do push forward and try and win it, you could open the door at the other end and ultimately lose it, and that would be even worse. So, yeah, so that's the fixtures from now. We'll get to who we think is going to win the title shortly. Normally, it's who's going to finish in the top 4. This year, the likelihood is that 5th place, because of the extra 2 Champions League spots, England will get one of those. So 4th and 5th, is it a straight battle between Villa and Spurs? And if so, who gets 4th?
The answer to the first part of that is yes. It's a straight up battle between Tottenham and Aston Villa. And it's difficult to figure it out from just a purely statistical perspective because Aston Villa continue to suffer with injuries. 3 ACLs this season. John McGinn suspension for 3 matches, as well as Ollie Watkins right now unavailable. But you have to rely on the fact that what you see on the pitch under Unai Emery remains a more consistent notion than sometimes the reliance of having to score a stoppage time winner for Tottenham. I mean, you look at the way that they just about beat Luton Town a few matches ago. They got that draw against West Ham, even though it could have gone either way. So I'm going to go with Aston Villa getting 4th place. And I'm telling you this without any bias, without putting my heart in it right now. I want Villa to get a Champions League. Of course I do. But from a statistical perspective, from what I'm seeing from Unai Emery the entire season, no excuses. Just go out there and deliver. I think that Villa will get this done and get 4th place.
I like the fact that it's likely that Villa and Spurs will both get Champions League because I think they deserve it next season. But I think, like you, Villa will finish 4th. Okay, 3-2-1 in the Premier League. Start at 3 and then give me your champions at the end.
Okay, so let's go with 3rd. As I started midway through what we were chatting about, I believed in Mikel Arteta and this young Arsenal side for almost the entirety of this campaign. But I think Arsenal Unfortunately, once Bayern Munich comes in and gives them a little bit of a headache midweek in terms of the deepening and the health of their squad, I have them in third place. I think that when you look at the remaining schedule and the fact that they only have to play 3 teams below the top 10, a lot of them are going still for European competition. And of course, they still have to face some tough battles. I'm going with Arsenal in third. You want me to go to second, or should we wait?
I'll go Arsenal in third as well. So that leaves us with Liverpool and Manchester City. Which order do you have them finishing?
Again, because of the Champions League, and I know we're going to talk about this in a minute, Real Madrid are going to give Manchester City a bit of a headache, and I think that's going to be a determinant. I'm going with Manchester City in second. They do not win the Premier League this season.
Disagree. I've
So
got
we're
City.
flipping it.
Yeah.
Tell me why.
They've been there.
Mm-hmm.
They know how to get it done. It's the whole, when you're looking at horses in a horse race, there's a little C and a D beside their name. That means course and distance. It means they know how to win at that venue.
The French scatter, basically. Yeah.
Liverpool have won it before. Don't get me wrong, but Salah could have had 6 goals at the weekend. He'll get there. Don't get me wrong, and I'd rather he was creating or getting the chances to take. But City have just got better players, and if City's best is evident, it's better than Liverpool and it's better than Arsenal. And I like their running. I think they've got the easiest of the 3. Now, yes, they've got some tough games in there. They play Spurs and Villa as well. But if they get the 3 points against an Ollie Watkins-less Villa today, that's one of the big games, the hard games, the important games out the way. So I just think City are better. And I think Erling Haaland will score quite a few goals between now and the end of the season. I think it'll be close. And I love the fact we've got 3 teams that are battling, and it's not just a head-to-head until April and then the title's won. But would it surprise me if Liverpool won the title? No, not at all. Not at all. But for me, City, if they show that they are the best team by the way that they play, I don't see how Liverpool get the better of them.
Yeah, I hope that our producer Rob Moore puts on that schedule again, because I think that here we go. Because I think that a few things. One, we already talked about the 5 teams that Liverpool have to face below 10th place. But you make a very good point about, which was my friend's argument, which is if you've been there before and you know what to do and you have the killer instinct, that's Pep Guardiola's Manchester City. Tonight, for City, this Villa game is absolutely massive. You would think that Palace, they'll take care of it. Luton, they'll take care of it. Tottenham away, that's a big, big game. Brighton away, well, Brighton are not as good as they were at the moment. Forest are usually good at home, but I think by then it'll be done. Wolves the same, Fulham the same, West Ham the same. So really, once again, Villa and Tottenham, who have to play all 3 of these teams, basically determine the Premier League title, MD. That's basically what we're saying here.
I was looking at the last 4 for Manchester City, and I always find it at this stage of the season, you get some funky results. You get your Sheffield United or your Luton or your Burnley winning games that you're not expected to win, games that they wouldn't win earlier in the season, but games that they now have to win. I don't know who that'll be against, but it's going to happen. It always happens. The 4 that City have got, the last 4 games that City have got, are teams that don't really have much to play for. Look at that. Forest away. Yeah, they've got something to play for, but City should beat Forest away. Wolves at home. Again, they'll win that one. Fulham away. Right now, Fulham look like they're on the beach.
Yeah.
Whereas if Liverpool, 35.
Yeah. Whereas if Liverpool want to win this, they've got Tottenham and Villa in the last 4 as well.
So the point is, if Manchester City are within a point or 2, or even level with Arsenal and Liverpool at the top of the table or just behind going into the last 4, for me, Manchester City win the title.
Hey, by the way, Rob Moore wants me to ask you, where do you think Hearts would finish in the Premier League?
Oh, yeah. You know what? I've had this argument for 30 years, not about Hearts, but about Rangers and Celtic. Where would Rangers and Celtic finish in the Premier League? If it's a level playing field, if they're getting the money that these teams are getting, Rangers and Celtic comfortably would be in the top half. Hearts would be pushing for a playoff place in the Championship. Let me leave it there. Let's move on to some quick takes. I know you like a quick take. You usually like a hot take. Got some questions for you. See what you think about these. Jude Bellingham will win the Ballon d'Or before Kylian Mbappe.
Oh, that's a good one. And it's tough because it depends on 2 things. The Champions League and the Euros, I think, specifically for this season. I mean, Real Madrid look like they're going to win La Liga. PSG are definitely going to win Liga. So, it's dependent on, just the fact that England and France are the favorites. to win Euros and then the Champions League as well. It is very possible for this to happen, but it's determinant on that. I remember like about a year and a half ago, we did a video and I think I said exactly that. Jude Bellingham is going to win a Ballon d'Or before we know it, and I have to stick to those guns. So yes, I think so. I think Jude Bellingham can win a Ballon d'Or before Kylian Mbappe, but it's determinant, I think, on a few things. The season that he's had with Real Madrid is remarkable. It's nothing to take away from the ridiculousness of Kylian Mbappe, but because this is an award is based on popularity and sometimes recency bias and titles, you have to rely on the fact that the Champions League and the Euros are going to be a major determinant for this.
Okay, Roy Keane's comments about Erling Haaland, I mean, a bit tongue-in-cheek, kind of suggesting at times he looked like a League Two player. He had that miss kick, and he's missed some sitters of late. Isn't entirely incorrect. What do you got to say about that?
Andy, like, first of all, we were talking about this. Such an insult to Paul Mullen. And what's that kid from Notts County called, by the way?
Macaulay Langstaff.
Have you seen their movement? They are very good players. So it's a bit of an
Ollie
insult.
Palmer, Stephen Fletcher at Wrexham.
Yes,
There's some good players. Mansfield have got good players. We watch
Show
them.
some
They're
love
on ESPN Plus.
Exactly. Show some love. But listen, okay. And yes, obviously you need to allow the Manchester United bias to come in here from Roy Keane, but I get what he's saying, because one of the biggest issues for Erling Haaland, specifically against Arsenal, and Pep Guardiola said it, was the movement was not there. Part of it is because of the movement collectively from Manchester City was not there in the final third. But I'm going to make this very clear about Erling Haaland. First of all, you can't talk that much garbage about a player that's scored 52 goals in all competitions in his first season for Manchester City, leading the Premier League table right now. And this is where my argument goes here. He is such an incredible goal scorer and finisher. But as a player with a football brain who needs to understand where he needs to be and how he can help with steam, with movement, etc., he's got a little bit of way to go. But that's not a surprise to him or anybody that follows him, because he's still young. There's a difference between being a ridiculous finisher and a smart footballer. And you just have to keep growing and maturing and get there. My recommendation to Erling Haaland is just to watch tapes of Gerd Müller, Lewandowski in his prime, Van Nistelrooy, Cavani in his prime, and just try and learn a little bit more. But Pep Guardiola said it. It's not just his fault. It's the fact that Man City are looking, or were looking, a little bit too stable in that final third. So I get Roy's point. He's an incredible finisher, but in terms of movement and football brain in the final third, he still needs to work. I mean, that's not a shocker.
I don't think he needs to get the VHS out or the Betamax out to look at tapes of Gerd Müller. I just think he needs to look at last season. Right. And how he played last season, and how he did at Dortmund, and how he did in other teams that he's played, even going back to Molde. He's a goal scorer. It'll come again. And we talk about Darwin Núñez missing a lot of chances. And he has. He's missed 22 big chances this season. But Erling Haaland has missed 27. Imagine those went in, because a lot of them did last season, and he still missed 28 big opportunities.
Imagine if you mesh those two players together, and that'll be kind of incredible.
They're just really excellent footballers. But Erling Haaland is just superb.
Ridiculous.
He'll come good again. This is an interesting one. I'm going to wrap this up with a couple more questions for you. This is one that I believe, not to the extent of a certain former Sky presenter in the UK who's now in the Middle East just chuntering away to himself. But the suggestion that Xabi Alonso has made a mistake by deciding to stay at Bayer Leverkusen for next season. What do you make of that?
I think me and you might disagree here, but I don't think he made a mistake. I think it's a revolutionary act of what he did, because, you know, he's showing something most young managers or players fail to show these days, and that's self-awareness. Even if next season doesn't go well for Leverkusen, Alonso knows who he is, and so does the rest of Europe. Big jobs will come again, but he is a coach above anything else. And I think part of the reason why he stayed is because he understands where he's at in his career at this moment, and he has control of what he wants to see. I think for him, it's also heroic and maybe brave to stay there, because he wants to achieve something that perhaps Leverkusen fans have never seen, as opposed to going to Bayern Munich or even Liverpool, to be honest with you. So no, I don't think it's a mistake, because he's young. People know how good he is, and he will eventually get those opportunities once again. I do believe that there is a release clause in his contract in terms of 2025 moving onward. So everything is fine. I love that he did this. Self-awareness and just a little bit of, hold on a second, let me stay where I am and move my path.
And with time running out on Wednesday's ESPN FC live show, I'm not going to go against that because only time will tell. What I will say is that Bayer Leverkusen go to Union Berlin on Saturday morning, and I'm commentating on it. So please feel free to join me for that one. Kickoff at 9:30 Eastern. We're going to end by talking about Jurgen Klopp. What about a potential England manager one day or a United States of America manager one day? Would that work for Jurgen?
Well, I know that you would hate him to manage England, right? Like that's just not a non-starter. Right? Listen, after his break, right? Because he said it himself, and we need to respect the fact he wants a sabbatical. He wants to just chill out for a minute. But we're talking about after that. It would be incredible to see somebody like Jurgen Klopp take on the United States men's national team, because in many ways, that team, that squad, that setup fits the model of what he wants. And I'm not just talking about gegenpressing, but I'm talking about this organizational defines of what you want to do in the final third. And the USMNT have a lot of players, eager players, that I think still have a lot to do to elevate their game. And I think if you put somebody like Jurgen Klopp, and when you just listen or watch an interview from any Jurgen Klopp player, past, present, or whatever, they will tell you that they do anything for him. And I think that USMNT is the type of team that collectively would definitely buy into his system, and it would be amazing to watch. You know, here's what I want. I want Klopp for the USMNT and Jose Mourinho for Mexico.
Wow.
I think that would be, that's just a telenovela just in the making. It would be incredible.
That would be lively. By the way, before Bayer Leverkusen go to Union Berlin on Saturday on ESPN+, they have the small matter of a Pokal semi-final against Fortuna Düsseldorf. And if you're in the United States, that is on ESPN+ this afternoon, plus 3 Premier League games today, including Arsenal against Luton and Manchester City against Villa, with Brentford Brighton in there as well. Full reaction to all of them on tonight's ESPN FC, available every single day on ESPN+. My thanks to LME. We'll do this all again on Friday. Bye for now.